If the Labor Peace Act never hits his desk, the dominoes never keep falling that end up in an executive order that no groundwork had been laid for. I mean, if you're going to have an executive order, you have to first tell the people of the state what's broken before you put in the fix. I don't think there was any sense of what was broken that required that particular fix.
Absolutely. I would agree. I would agree. I think that the Colorado Labor Peace Act certainly set in motion the whole series of events that occurred relative to our last election cycle, where we expended a tremendous amount of political capital to maintain the status quo, is essentially what we have now. And the ramifications of that, I think, certainly will be borne in the re-election campaign.
That was the ultimate domino, is after then the executive order, then you had right to work, and you had all the countermeasures filed, and you had what, $30 or $40 million spent?
All set in motion because the governor said, yeah, bring it to my desk, I will sign it. And if he didn't do that, all that would have gone away. Let's talk personalities, because that's much more fun. Cory Gardner, state representative, put together a letter to Mary Malarkey, who's the Chief Justice. Now, we're recording this before she does her State of the Judiciary speech, which I didn't even know happened, but it sounds pretty interesting. He asked her to address to the joint House and Senate what's going on with the courts. It seems that there's a whole series of decisions that are very partisan. He mentioned things, for instance, the mill levy freeze, which they haven't ruled on, but they said go ahead and collect it, even though a lower court said it's unconstitutional. He talked about Amendment 59, Romanoff's initiative, which was a Christmas tree of issues, somehow was single subject, but a couple of years before, Defend Colorado Now initiative was not a single subject. We could talk about certificates of participation, which are somehow constitutional, but debt isn't without a vote. I'm not expecting her to address that question, but is the court known as a liberal court?
Well, I think that based upon the appointments and Romer's appointments and so forth, certainly you have the balance is there, and there's opinion that would suggest otherwise. I think Cory is right to ask the question and to actually bring to light some of the concerns relative to the decisions that the court has made and legislative decisions that
You're not expecting the Chief Justice on Friday morning to say,
I doubt
you know, the reason we always go with the Democrats is this. A fair letter to put out. I kind of felt he did something that said the emperor has no clothes, and legislators.
Yeah, but he's not the first one to suggest that. I mean, John Andrews has ran a campaign to put term limits, I believe, on justices. I mean, these issues have been in play for a while. Cory Gardner, who is a very able guy and looking to build a further name for himself as either a congressional candidate or a statewide candidate, I think has chosen this as an issue. I don't regard it as an unfair issue. I think one of the regrets probably of the Bill Owens administration, and this was not their doing, it was just the bad luck of timing, is that Bill Owens was governor for 8 years, and my recollection is only had two appointments to the High Court, where Roy Romer and Dick Lamb before them had substantially more appointees to the High Court. It was just the luck of timing.
But to get technical, you've been involved in issue campaigns. When you took a look at something like Amendment 59 last year, which was Romanoff's anti-Tabor initiative, it changed the Tabor, it changed Amendment 23, it changed finance spending and school spending. And it was thought before that there's no way that something like that, so comprehensive in all these different areas of the Constitution, could ever be called a single subject. After that was called a single subject, I don't know how you call anything.
I'm not going to really get into 59 because all I know about it, I don't understand it that well, and what I know about it is other smarter heads than mine said that what Romanoff and Kerry Kennedy had done was somewhat brilliant in being able to tackle this complicated issue within single subject. I guess where I'd be more critical is where you were going back a couple of years ago, where Defend Colorado Now, that looked like a fairly simple, straightforward ballot issue that clearly was a single subject, and the court said, no, let's stop this right here and not let it go to the voters.
And the issue that the Independence Institute has been involved with in suing on the mill levy freeze, and we're still waiting for an answer, but they said, but go ahead and pretend it's constitutional, even though the Denver court said it's unconstitutional. Let's talk some other personalities. We've got a new Speaker of the House. What do you think of him?
I like him. I think he's great. I think he's reform-minded, but he also brings some new perspectives to the chamber that we haven't seen in a long time. Well, I think coming for his background, his history is unique to the chamber and
Terrence
his
Carroll
world.
is a minister, isn't he?
He is. He's a minister, but he has a very unique upbringing. I mean, he was he was a poor poor black child in D.C., and so he brings a unique perspective that we haven't seen before, but he also brings a reform mind in many respects, particularly to education reform, which is really exciting, I know, for Republicans to have someone like that to work with, where they...
And he's also going to be the sharpest dressed Speaker of the House
there is no
ever.
question.
I have never seen a man so
Absolutely.
well decked out.
Yeah, I think he's good to work with.
You agree with this?
I agree with that, and just where Sandra ended up, I mean, I think it's really notable. Everyone's focused on the fact that you now have a black man in running both the state Senate and the state House. That is clearly historic and to be, be acknowledged.
Okay.
But I think, it's now acknowledged. I think what's more important to me is you have Democrats running both of these houses, and yet the Democrats who have long been regarded as being the ultimate defenders, a wholly owned subsidiary of CEA and the teachers union, ultimate defenders of the educational status quo, both houses are now led by significant education reformers. We'll see if that actually
Give me some
comes into
specific.
play.
I mean, everybody who's involved with education is a reformer. I've not met anybody who isn't involved in education that isn't a reformer. So put some details on this. What do you mean reformer?
Your point is well taken, but I think any serious-minded person knows that in most of those cases it's window dressing. And with regard to Peter Groff, clearly, with regard to Terrence Carroll, it is not window dressing. I would say charter schools. I mean, these are people who believe in charter schools and believe in innovation schools, which was legislation that Peter Groff, now Senate President, led a year ago. These are people who are willing to challenge the status quo of failed urban public education and basically attack it from the supply side of creating opportunities for more new startup schools that parents have the choice of going to.
Now that we have two reform-minded guys running both houses, are they going to take on the behemoth, the CEA, the NEA, and the unions? How in the world can you rush through something like changing the Labor Peace Act, and then turn around and say, but it's time to take control of the CEA and to let kids go first?
Certainly, I think the challenge is large, but I think if there's ever a time where the CEA and others can be, in fact, challenged and reform really can occur, it's now. Peter Groff in his opening remarks and Terrence both made reference to school choice and improving access and options for children in the urban sector.
Neither one of them will go so far as to endorse vouchers, however. I've never heard either one say so.
They won't go that far. That's probably a bridge too far in the current environment. You don't find Obama or Arnie Duncan, the new Secretary of Education, going that far. That's not to say there is not a sea change going on in elite Democratic opinion around this issue, and I think people like you, John, ought to you can keep pushing for it a little bit further, but you ought to applaud the sea change that is going on. When you talk about the Labor Peace Act, that came to Bill Ritter's desk under a Senate President, Joan Fitzgerald. Peter Groff is a very different guy.
All right.
I agree.
Got about a minute or so left. Give me the good surprises. And put out your prediction now. Who's going to be taken down from a sex scandal? Who's what's going to happen?
We don't have Doug Bruce to.
Present company excluded. I hope. But,
listen, if I were elected, I would guarantee a sex scandal. I would make sure it happened, and that's a promise I would keep. All right, give me a couple predictions.
No, I have to. I'm going to pass it off to Eric. Give me a thought. Give me a second to think about that.
Thanks a lot, Sandra.
Yeah.
I don't have anything outrageous for you, John. I think it's going to be a very difficult session. I think there's political fatigue around the Capitol right now. This election year was so intense, but yet it is such a political body. You're going to get into campaigns. Republicans, I think the real chapter, Democrats are into place. Republicans have to decide what their new brand is and who their new faces are. Are we going with some retread faces? Or are we going with fresh faces?
I think you hit it right on the nose, because Republicans really do have to
time for the Republicans to rebrand.
Something.
Sandra, thank you. Eric, thank you.
you.
We'll do it again. Thank you so much. Check out our webpage, independenceinstitute.org. Listen for me late nights on 850 KOA. Tell a friend. We'll see you next week.
You jab a jab, bamboozle, nuka noozle, bippity bop, she-call. You jab a jab, bamboozle, nuka noozle, bippity bop, she-call. I mean, you keep on talking, but you don't know where to turn it off. The day I met you, wish I'd been in Paris.